Hey everybody, how you doing? For those of you who celebrate Easter, happy Easter. Those of you who celebrate Passover, hope you're having a good Passover or whatever you're celebrating. Have a good weekend. Having a good weekend because I'm actually filming this on Saturday. So we are again, as you know, nearing the very end of the semester, and we have a couple of things that are due, and actually, just everybody should have gotten back their data journalism assignment. Um, I basically I basically the way to assess it, I guess, is I'm going to go over three things today. Actually, really, the data journalism assignment, the feature assignment. I got some news about that. Might have gotten an alert over the weekend. I'm actually going to extend. I'm actually extending the deadline from Monday to Thursday. This Monday to Thursday. Okay, so it actually has been extended already. So, all right. So anyway, I was actually just kind of a little worried about what I was seeing preliminarily in terms of like some people send me some stories. Nothing against that. It's great. I just want to make sure everybody got this, how this works, feature writing. Okay. So and then I'm at the end, the very end, those who want to stick around for this, I'm actually going to show you the video of the actual Marv Bronson in real life to show you that actually this did happen and why that story was just more than a resignation story. So um, anyway, first, data journalism. So overall assessment on that, I would say about half of you got it, half of you didn't. So um, here's the thing, okay? Again, I think what might have been confusing people a bit was that, you know, any kind of story, you're always trying to look at the newest, biggest thing, okay? But there's always like kind of like a new, what's new, what the is what's happening here. But it's not necessarily the newest tuition increase we're writing about. Our subject is about the last 5 years, the latest trend. So this is a story about a trend, okay? I won't try to dwell too much on this because I know this rewrite is due next week, and I want to make sure we also focus on the feature. Okay, so let me just go to the go to my whiteboard here. All right. So basically, you want to look at the last 5 years, and the way to do that again, it's actually may appear to be intimidating. It may actually be um, it may be for some people. Just give me a second here. Okay, there's something I had to actually take care of there. So anyway, so the latest trend the last 5 years, a couple of you actually got it wrong. Actually, what I should first do actually is show you again how to get there. Again, I know I've shown this a couple times already, but I actually found, again, the easiest way, again, just put in what it is, okay? This is all about, I told you the last half of the semester would deal more with like digging and reporting and things like that. Rutgers tuition hike, and you put in the year, okay? Go back to 2018, okay? And I know some of you use the news sources, like NorthJersey.com. That's fine. But like I said, I always feel like the best way to do it is to actually go to the actual release from the university itself. They're actually required to disclose this. So, and then you can get like information for why that particular year actually, things went up, or even like I said, like a good way of handling this is identifying the trend in the first paragraph, and then in the second paragraph, maybe summarizing generally what those reasons were generally for raising tuition almost every year, giving away a big hint there for the last 5 years. Right. And then you get to highlight specific years where, it was more unique than others. This particular year was 2.3% increase. And then it goes right in here. Some of the reasons why you can and for news releases, they're meant to be released to the public. It's in the public domain. It's meant for, you can actually almost word for word. There's actually one place where quote unquote plagiarism is actually allowed, and it's not plagiarism. but this is actually meant to be released to the public, and they would love it actually if you worded it the way they did. Okay, so so how is this supposed to be handled? Again, let's go back to the whiteboard here. All right. So again, the lead needs to basically say something along the lines of like Rutgers is like your subject matter. Okay, or Rutgers raised tuition. Okay, you know, however many times over the last 5 years. Just got to be straightforward as that, and really just try to be simple. Some of you kind of went into fees and everything else. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at just try to keep it simple. Sometimes, I mean, I understand you're kind of taught in school to kind of overshoot, to maybe add stuff as much as possible. You feel like I got to get to that 500 word limit, but you don't have to you don't have to worry about padding or adding stuff that's not relevant or anything like that. Just stick to tuition, you'll get there. Okay. And this is another thing I saw, wasn't a lot of attribution. According to Rutgers media reports, is probably the best way to handle it. In the very top graph, sorry, Rutgers news releases, identify it exactly where it comes from. And maybe media reports, if you use those too, like maybe a summary graph right here. Typically, you know, it was because of rising costs. Okay. You know, basically that's what the reason they used. You can get that right from the news releases. And then below that, I mean, I'm making basically kind of like a rough outline here. All right, I highlight specific years that were significant or unique, and I'm still don't want to give away answers here, but there was one year that was particularly unique. Okay, and maybe you know what I'm talking about already. Okay, one year that kind of bucked the trend. Oh, how much am I giving away there? So that's actually a particular year that should be highlighted. The year that they had the highest increase, I think, I forget which year it was, but it was 2.9%. I know this is actually the AP style here. Oops. All right. You know, basically use a transitional phrase. The highest hike was in when tuition went up 2.9%. And then again, according to a Rutgers news release or a media or a NorthJersey.com or whatever. Okay. News release or report. Okay. And then you go with that, you find that press release, and usually it was the president or was it French chief financial officer, I think it was, who actually released information, but say Rutgers said they raised tuition that year. I think the year they actually, I remember this. That year, they blamed it on the teachers basically, and then the workers because of rising salaries. Okay, and then maybe go into a quote. And once you like highlight certain years, stuff like that, you'll get there. You'll get the information you'll need. You'll get to that 500 word minimum that I talk about. Okay, you just gotta like dig for it. You gotta go through Google, get the information, get it from a release. We'll go one paragraph at a time, and you'll build up to it. You know, use the quotes they have in the press releases. Okay, and then you go to the students' quotes. At the bottom, you know, a couple anecdotes. I really need at least 2 students. Okay. Some of you only have 1. Come on, let's have 2, okay? And then the list at the bottom, some of you didn't do this, you know, again, 2017. I'm looking, this is how they do it nowadays. They write lists. I think it's 1.85. I don't remember, but basically I think it's, you know, you put the percentage increase in there, and then you do the 2018, 2019, you put the percentage increase there, and you have the list at the bottom. That doesn't count toward your word count, okay, the list here, but this, you should get plenty right here from the story to build up to that 500 words or more, okay? All right. So that's what I really need from that story is basically the latest trend, and then, you know, the reasons for that trend, the why, and then you basically highlight, well, what was part of that trend, like some of the years that actually were unique than others. You know, maybe the highest increase, maybe a particular year or 2, wherever it was, can't give it away, where they didn't raise tuition, that sort of thing, and why. Okay, and you'll get to that so-called 500 minimum. Okay. All right. Let's go to the feature assignment. Okay. So, and I actually again have this in All right. So again, 500 word story. Okay. I think I had left that part out initially when I posted this. So there's a 500 word story. Okay. And I noticed that like a lot of people had not contributed to the discussion point. So I sent out a thing saying, hey, what's the deal? So yeah, now I see 14. Very good. There were only two before. So you should have plenty of material now. You should have like anecdotes galore, the whole thing to take from here. Okay. All right. Now, again, this story is like different as I demonstrated, and I sent you reading materials to help back that up. But this story is basically going to be different than what you've been dealing with before a little bit. I mean, there's similarities, but there's one big difference, and we'll talk about that in a sec. Okay. And if you don't live in the Rutgers campus areas, feel free to write about your own area. It sounds like those of you who live internationally, like in China, countries like that, you're dealing with the similar experiences and changing of weather. So, maybe this is actually like not for me. It's actually like almost like psychologically healthy because I feel like we've been kind of living like under this dark cloud for like a couple of years, and I feel like the spring coming out is like giving a sense of renewal. I'm a big New York Mets fan and American baseball here. I went to the unveiling of the Tom Seaver statue. He was the best Mets player ever. It was like a big deal. Everybody was there, the whole thing. So I went. I saw that yesterday. Actually, why not? You want to see the video? So, I felt like it was a kind of yeah, that's me like goofing around, haha. I felt like that just being out with people and the whole thing. I mean, if you want to tie in, it's not a COVID story, okay? If you want to tie in COVID to it, that's fine too. Sense of renewal, people being back together. Let's get right to that.
Okay, Nancy, Sarah, and goodness knows you've waited long enough for this. So here goes. Finally, we unveil the Tom Seaver statue.
Nice, huh? I just feel like now you have outdoor events, you have things happening. It's maybe improving people's moods. It doesn't all have to be positive either. I mean, there's people who kind of like we've talked about. It's all the whole idea that like one day it can be like I think it was like 80 on Friday, and then Saturday it actually went down a bit, but actually it got warmed up in the afternoon. I'm sorry, not Saturday. On Thursday, I think it was actually like 80. On Friday, it was actually here in the United States. Friday, it went back down a little bit, then went back up. And then today on Saturday, it's actually a little cool outside. I had to close the windows. So, it's actually like that whole kind of like back and forth can be a little bit unsettling for people. As you can see behind me, I hope that's not too bright. We got the sun out here on Saturday. So anyway, let me just show you, like, actually, Justin actually has sent in his story. I actually thought he did a really good job. The only thing I suggested was maybe you could add another anecdote. The big difference here is that you have essentially a story that starts off slower. Okay. You don't go right, I've been harping on people, get right into the story, get right into the story. Well, this is actually an opportunity where we don't get right into the story. Okay. When I took the train to New York, I actually met up with a friend of mine worked with a long time ago, and he's a big Mets fan. And that was actually I was actually reading stories on my phone that were like this one because I had the time to do it. I wasn't rushing. I actually could find a seat. I wasn't like rushing anywhere. I could actually engage myself in stories that actually were a little bit more literate, okay, a little bit more like readable, or as I say, writing to be read, okay. So his story is actually about, basically we've had a combination of both warm and pleasant weather, but also gloomy weather. So his story is actually about both of that. Students dealing with the kind of changing in weather and how it's having a kind of a bit of an adverse impact on their emotional well-being, as he says. So that's the story. Okay. the thing is you don't actually, in his story, you actually don't really learn about it until here, okay? You don't really learn what the story is about until here. Okay. That's what they call the nut graph. Essentially also called a delayed lead. The idea is to actually bring you in a more suspenseful way, bring you in bring you in a more engaging way, okay? And what I really would like to see is like he did here. And like I called this the T. This whole part right here is actually the lead. The lead, his lead is 4 paragraphs long. And that's what I'm looking for here. I'm looking for something a little slower, okay? So basically you have this tease right here, and it is really best to start off with one person, one anecdote, one person. This is what I say to my digital media class when I do videos of people. I say, when you do a video of one person, that allows you to drill down into more detail. Think about it. If you did a video, or if you did a story about 3 people and some experience they shared, it's actually harder to get into more specific detail because it's 3 people. But if it's one person, you can get more deeper into their emotions, their feelings, you know, specific things that happen in their lives, that sort of thing. Okay. So I'm really looking at for you to start with one person. Okay. Much like you would do in any kind of anecdote. Okay. That like he has down here. He has Kimberly Street right here. He has G. Mancini right here. You know, all you're doing is essentially is taking an anecdote that you might normally have like in the middle of the story, and you're putting it at the top. Okay. So he's got Dylan Barnes, a 21-year-old industrial engineering student, sits on a beach outside in the Breweries Mall. A bench, I'm sorry. Beach. Barnes is wearing white athletic shorts and a t-shirt. He squints while watching a lecture video on his MacBook. The glare shines on the glare shines on his forehead. Okay, so that's the whole idea here, is you have actually in this particular case, you have no idea what's going to happen. You don't know if there's like something's going to land on top of his head. You have no idea of like, you know, I don't know, he's going to like jump into a car and like, you know, start driving to California. You have no idea what's going to happen. So it's actually in this particular case, a little mystery is good. Again, this is not a story that's supposed to have breaking news in it. This is a story that actually is supposed to be something you would actually try to read more leisurely. Okay. It's definitely easier to be productive when it gets nice out, but I didn't check the weather this morning. I would have been but if I didn't check the weather this morning, I would have been much worse right now. Okay, then on Tuesday during the afternoon, crowds of Rutgers students return to the greens at Voorhees Mall to enjoy the sudden warm weather. Some sit on blankets, while some just their t-shirts. A group performs indigenous Latinx dances while something on drums. So it sounds like it's a really nice day on Tuesday, right? And then, but the thing is that he's actually trying to show you that actually, like, you know, I might have actually added a graph right here, basically saying it was a far cry from, I think it was, what was it? Thursday afternoon, when, you know, we actually, my door got blown off because when storms blew doors off of houses, not quite, and knocked branches down as students dealt with storms. See, it's like this kind of back and forth weather that's going on here. It's created a bit of an unsettling feeling for people. They don't know how to predict things. You know, it's like they're, you know, they kind of like show up on Voorhees Mall, basically kind of like enjoying it like it's like late spring or summer. And then suddenly like this big whirlwind of wind comes in. I was actually ready to go running the afternoon of, it was Thursday. And then like the freaking rainstorm came, and then I had to I was like, what the hell do I do now? So I waited for it to die down and I went out running. So you can see that's the kind of like thing that's going on here right now, is that we have this kind of changing New Jersey weather. And from those of you who live in China and elsewhere, you're telling me you're basically dealing with maybe this similar thing. So that's basically what this story is about. Okay. In this particular case, I mean, by the time you actually finish writing the story, actually, maybe the weather actually will be better, because now that I've extended the deadline, so maybe you'll be writing, maybe it won't be so changeable by then. Maybe it'll be people, like I said, maybe you don't have to necessarily focus on that. You could focus on whatever your students tell you. you never can always predict or rely on like what you think it may be, the story may be beforehand. You have to rely on what people tell you, your interview subjects tell you, okay? And as I've said before, as an editor once said to me, always allow yourself the opportunity to be surprised, okay? So this past week, this is his nut graph. So basically, this is the opportunity to kind of sum things up, kind of stop in your tracks and basically say, okay, we waited long enough. Tell us what's going on here. Give us a reason to keep even reading more, because I'm looking for some substance here, okay? This past week has been consistently gloomy with rain and overcast skies. So those who didn't check the weather, like Barnes, may have been deemed to throw for a loop by the bluster. Several students in the grass said the surprise warmth was pleasant, but that gloomy weather and variable conditions having an adverse on their emotional well-being, okay? Yeah, because we've actually had more bad days than good here, so, all right? And as Barnes said here, I wish they would pick a season and stay with it, okay? One student noted that the seasons had a firm grasp on our mental health. So now we get into some transitions. Now we actually kind of return to basically the same pattern we've had before, okay? We actually like go transition, anecdote. This is that different from the data journalism assignment. Remember, that was all about transition, transition, transition. Now we're going back to what this kinds of stories we're doing earlier in the semester. And now we're doing transition, anecdote, quote, that kind of flow, okay? Kimberly Street, a 23-year-old biology major, said that common gloominess in the spring is too depressing and saps her drive. She sits under a thick oak tree in the shade so she can see her laptop while working on listening to music. Honestly, today helped move my mood a lot. Yeah, apparently, like this sunny day came as like, you know, as we dealt with a lot of gloomy days. And then of course the bad weather came back, you know, so. I asked him to actually, like I said, maybe add a little bit more to this because I felt like we have like plenty of information now we could actually like use now. So from this discussion point. So I mean, basically, you know, if you really want to like a big hint about how to handle things here, you could just basically take like, I mean, I don't know, like I said, I haven't read through all these yet, okay, but you know, maybe just take like, let's just take 3, maybe. Let's see. Now we got Kaylee, Cameron, and Joseph. Maybe do a little copy here, okay? And let's like reduce the point size so it's not too much in your face. Okay. No, actually, I'm sorry. Duh, right here. Okay. Let's just do 16, okay? So maybe we do like a little bit of paste special, cut, paste. Okay. All right, so this was, let's see, Cameron, Kaylee. Didn't copy down the first name here, I'm sorry. And no, it's Joseph. Okay, Joseph Zarrell. All right, so anyway, this is what I do actually a lot now, because actually like a lot of the interviews I do actually I get a transcript for is I literally like will just cut and paste right from it, just like you do with those news releases. You can just cut and paste from it, and then you can kind of shape it so that it actually is your writing. Shape it in your writing, and also fit it within the context of your story. You know, use transitional phrases to kind of go from one paragraph to the next or one point to the next. Okay. All right. So maybe you can do something like this. Joseph Zarrell, Joe, I forget what year you're in, but just say like maybe a Rutgers sophomore. Said the weather as of late has been pretty ridiculous. Some days he's waking up to 70 to 80, 70 to 60 to 70 degree weather and wearing shorts and t-shirt. The next day, again, well, I'm actually paraphrasing here because I can actually cut what he's saying without getting too wordy, you know, and make it easier to read. Okay, and people tend to read paraphrasing and storytelling and narrative more than read the quotes. Okay, weather is so interesting, especially not because of how random it is. One day it could be beautiful, next day it could just be disgusting and muggy out. That actually sounds like a pretty good quote. Okay, so that's probably like one anecdote and one quote right there. Okay, all right. Then we got Cameron. Hope I spell your name right. Well, it's right there. Let's see here. Cameron Driallo, on the other hand, said she really enjoys the weather. Enjoys, sorry. You could do like a partial quote. Maybe even gets to experience cold hot. Well, maybe, if we only experienced cold or hot weather instead of both, I think we would get sick of the constant higher temperatures, something like that. Okay. You got Kaylee Warden down here. Kaylee, I'm sorry if I forgot how to spell your name. I know it's just in front of me. Kaylee Warden said she has been has been loving the weather this past week. As Rutgers is experiencing, or has been, whoops. She said this is her favorite time of year because you start to see everyone going outside more. And then, like I said, I mean, by paraphrase, you can actually cut down on things that don't sound so repetitive. With the changing weather, she has been going out in the sun to do more work or simply bask in the sun. However, I know that the temperature will be going back down soon, and that is concerning because of global warming. We just do that. All right. So there you go. Now I've just given you essentially like how now we can stick transitions in between those anecdotes and those quotes. I gave you just 3 of them right there. That's how simple it can be. And then, basically there's also a little bit more description in this kind of story. I can actually you tried a little bit harder to try to paint a picture of what everybody's going through. He was wearing pants in the weather. Basically, we get to see what Joe is wearing, that sort of thing. You get a little bit, you maybe ask those sorts of questions you're interviewing, or actually you make that observation in your notes you wouldn't otherwise make. Like, what are they wearing? How are they acting? What's the expression on their face? That sort of thing. That's what you kind of thing you do in a feature story. Okay. Now, here's again the big difference. Okay. So maybe I add in a transition right here. Add in a transition right here. And then I add in a transition right here. Okay. All right. But we have to come up with a theme for the story. It seems what we've seen so far is similar to what we saw in Justin's story, and that is kind of like liking the hot weather, but not liking the mixed situation so much. Okay. So, you try to think of maybe what would be a lead for this story. Okay. All right. So Rutgers students, maybe say they've been frustrated with the gloomy weather recently, but they're pleased that the weather has at least gotten warmer. I know it doesn't sound like earth-shattering news, but again, it's supposed to be an engaging story, a light story. People like to kind of light features sometimes just because maybe it's something relatable, like I talked about with the clothing and stuff like that. Okay, now here's the big difference. See, I wrote that like a lead, right? Only the big difference here is that's not going to be your lead. That's going to be your nut graph. This is how you can actually construct this feature story so that actually you can kind of envision what would look like more as a straight news story, and then kind of develop it into a nut graph. What you're going to do is you're going to take one of these anecdotes, maybe from here, okay? And I would take maybe Kaylee's actually. That seemed to kind of echo the whole sentiment I just expressed there. Basically sum up the notes you got, which are right there in the discussion points, and you put it at the top. And now you have, an anecdotal lead. We can always return to Kaylee. We don't have to actually leave her high and dry. A lot of times, actually, what they do in these feature stories is start off with a person, and then they end with the same person. But by starting off with Kaylee, we can actually drill down to maybe her personal frustrations or pleasantries or whatever, the more specific to her, and we could drill down and get more detail. Okay. So that's all. See what I did there? I just moved essentially one anecdote to the top. So now it starts with Kaylee Warden said she's been loving the weather this past week. Rutgers has been experiencing 70s and even reaching into the mid 80s. She said this is her favorite time of year because you start to see everyone going outside more. With this change in weather, she has been going outside to do more schoolwork, to read, or to simply bask in the sun. Nice. I like the idea of basking in the sun. That's good writing right there. It's good. Like Kaylee actually provided essentially, but but that was actually a good quote she had there, essentially that we turn into a paraphrase. Hopefully, but then we get into the however. However, I know that temperature is going to go going back down soon, and that is concerning in regards to global warming. Okay, then the nut graph. Okay, people are kind of looking for like something here to basically give me at this point to give me an idea, because it is a feature story, but it's also a news story at the same time. So they are looking for news. Okay. But they're hopefully by this point they're kind of hooked in by the stylistic writing and the the engaging story, the basking in the sun, the sense of being there, the sense of feeling. Rutgers should say they've been frustrated by the gloomy misspelling with the gloomy weather recently, but they're pleased that the weather has at least gotten warmer. Okay. Maybe like some students say it's nice to have a consistent idea of what they're wearing. It's kind of what Joe got into. Next thing he was wearing blah blah blah. Or you could say like, or even like it's frustrating not knowing what to wear or whatever. Okay. That's it. All right. All right. So that's basically like that's how, if I was actually like have you guys sitting in a classroom, that's exactly how I would do it. Okay. And that's how I would demonstrate it. So hopefully you got that. And that's basically another reason why I'm giving you more time on this assignment, because I want to make sure that actually you really got a handle on what's going on here. Okay. And this is like really an opportunity to kind of like, as I say, flex those creative muscles, right? And and basically, give me an idea, or give the reader a chance to actually maybe kind of like read more leisurely. Those who actually like to read, because actually, newspapers or news organizations are supposed to actually provide like all types of kind of news writing and all types of kinds of experiences. So it's not all supposed to be like all about Ukraine and everything. It's not all supposed to be about like scandals in the White House and all that stuff. It's supposed to actually provide sort of a light sort of thing here. So anyway, all right. So if you've hung around long enough, that's great. Now, for those of you who might be curious, I'm actually going to show you the real life Marv Bronson. His name was Dennis Kozlowski, and I believe this report was from 2008. And 60 Minutes did a thing on him. Now, this assignment was actually originally conceived by Bill Borden a long time ago, because he kind of fun to do, but also he got it from this website where they listed all these kind of crazy things. He didn't actually get it from this smokinggun.com, I think it's called. You actually get it from the 60 Minutes report. I'm not sure what that's about, but there was this website called smokinggun.com. I'm not sure what that is, but anyway, it actually would release like kind of like crazy information about people, and especially during this particular time when we had the Great Recession, and you guys were pretty young at the time, I'm sure, when that happened, so maybe you don't remember it, but and Dennis Kozlowski, and now some of the details actually here actually were different. Like Dennis Kozlowski, for instance, did actually go to jail, and so some of the details were actually kind of like massaged and changed and everything, so you couldn't actually just look it up and get it. Basically was the idea. Okay. So you're probably going to say like, what? But there are going to be some exact details in here that you're going to recognize. So just to give you an idea here, like this is the reason why 60 Minutes did this story that they otherwise wouldn't do. This guy left this company because he did some scumbaggy things. So, that's why this story is different. And that's why it was so important to emphasize that part of the story. Okay. So let's look at this story or look at this. Okay. It's about 13 minutes long. Okay.
And even bigger time prisons. A year ago or so, the air was thick with tales of corporate scandal, lost pension funds, big time theft, and even bigger time prison sentences for the Enron gang. Then there was Dennis Kozlowski, CEO of Tyco, who was found guilty of, in effect, using Tyco's immense financial resources for what the prosecution described as his own personal piggy bank. You might remember the $6,000 shower curtain and stealing over $100 million from the company. Well, we wondered how the man who could whistle up a corporate jet on a whim or throw a $2 million birthday party was doing in his reduced circumstances. What's it like to go from king of the world to prisoner number 05A4820, serving 8 to 25 years behind bars? Once again, Dennis Kozlowski. We caught up with Dennis Kozlowski at Mid-State Correctional Facility in upstate New York.
How you doing? I'm doing okay.
Guests include murderers, drug dealers, and pedophiles, and the odd multimillionaire.
In my wildest imagination, when I would project myself into my late 50s and early 60s, where I would be or what I would be doing, if I make a list of 100 different places or 100 different things, here would never make that list.
He now earns $1 a day, mopping floors and slinging hash to his fellow inmates. In January, Kozlowski spent a week in hospital with a heart ailment and got to thinking. You've not taught publicly up till now. Why did you decide to do it?
When I was in the hospital in January, I was outside the emergency room feeling really uncomfortable, frightened. And that's when I really made the firm decision that I wanted to go through and talk to you at this time.
You became aware of your own mortality.
Very much so.
And you didn't want to leave this world
Without at least an opportunity to talk about my side of the story to the extent that I can talk about it.
He agreed to speak with one stipulation, that we would not include anyone else in this story. Because of an appeal, he'll not discuss the details of his case, but he will say,
I believe in the judicial system. I think all that works. But in this case, the jury got it wrong.
that jury convicted him of 22 counts of grand larceny, conspiracy, and securities fraud. His trials occurred in the wake of a white-collar crime wave, Enron, WorldCom, and Martha Stewart. The news hound smelled blood, accused of looting his company of hundreds of millions of dollars and living the life of a pasha at stockholders' expense. He was the living, breathing version of Wall Street's Gordon Gekko.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Up to a point. What's puzzling is why does a man who struggled so hard, so effectively to make it, become so careless or stupid or arrogant? Born in a tenement on the wrong side of the tracks in Newark, New Jersey, Kozlowski worked his way through school.
I played guitar in a band. I worked in a pharmacy. I worked in a car wash. I had 2 or 3 jobs going at any given time.
Where you came from, there weren't that many options.
No. Growing up in Newark, New Jersey at the time, you never thought of yourself growing up to become a CEO.
You started at Tyco, then a small New Hampshire manufacturing company.
Tyco was a huge company. I believe it still is. So they actually essentially they would be the megalomania. Okay. And, when they ran out of trouble, it affected the economy. It affected more than just Tyco.
As an accountant, making $28,000 a year and worked his way up to CEO. He became known as Deal-a-Day Dennis, constantly acquiring new companies and building Tyco from a $40 million company into a $40 billion conglomerate.
Would like to become, all things equal, $100 billion company.
Wall Street could not get enough of the young, aggressive CEO. He also began making staggering amounts of money, among the top-earning CEOs in the country.
We had a pay-for-performance culture at Tyco, so most of the money I earned was in the appreciation of Tyco stock.
One year you made, I think, $170 million.
I'm not sure 170, but I made over 100 million. Yeah.
Well,
It was more money than
10 million
possibly.
here, 10
Exactly.
million there, who cares? But what's it like to earn that kind of money?
It's a way of keeping score, I guess.
Keeping score meant keeping up with the masters of the universe. $30 million to build a mansion in Boca Raton, acquiring homes in Nantucket, and Colorado. And just loose change, $16 million for Endeavor, a vintage yacht. Wealth meant one thing, social acceptance another. He and his second wife, Karen Mayo, spent millions on painting. He joined the board of the Whitney Museum. For a pied-à-terre in New York, he had Tycho buy a $19 million apartment and decorated it with $11 million worth of stuff. The poor kid from Newark was stepping out on Fifth Avenue. Would Dennis Kozlowski a few years ago even contemplate going to Europe to buy old master paintings?
No, absolutely not. It came with earning the amount of money I was earning at the time.
Was it your idea, or were you invited to join the board of the Whitney?
Oh, it was not my idea at all. I was invited to join the board, and I never made a board meeting.
So you were invited because they like having really rich guys on the board.
I assume it wasn't for my knowledge of art.
But it was art that would lead to his undoing. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office was investigating galleries that were helping customers avoid sales taxes. Kozlowski had purchased $13 million worth of paintings, including a Renoir and Monet, for the Tycho apartment. But prosecutors said he had some of them shipped to Tycho's offices in New Hampshire, a state without sales tax. They were then trucked back to New York. In 2002, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office indicted Kozlowski for evading over $1 million in sales tax, and he resigned as CEO. But that was only the beginning. The Tycho board investigated its CEO's behavior and made public a report that was devastating. Kozlowski's excesses were revealed in
Here we go. This is where the stuff that really makes it interesting.
excruciating detail. Decorations for the New York apartment became classic tabloid headlines, mocking the CEO's taste and his greed. The $15,000 doggy umbrella stand, and the ultimate symbol of his downfall, that $6,000 shower curtain. The coverage was really punishing.
That was horrible.
As overblown as the coverage may have been, you signed off on those.
I signed off on a decorator to decorate the Tycho apartment, and beyond that, that was my involvement. The first time I heard about that shower curtain, the first time was after I was out of the company, and I read about it in a newspaper, and I was calling around asking, "Where's the shower curtain?" But to this day, I wouldn't know it if it fell on me. So.
Then it was the 40th birthday
Here we go. Here's the birthday party.
party for Kozlowski's wife Karen in Sardinia. It was togas galore. 4-day festival of flesh.
What's wrong?
Jimmy Buffett was flown in for the music, and guests were treated to a special cake, an anatomically correct woman with exploding breasts. The cost was over $2 million. Since Kozlowski claimed it was in part a work retreat, Tycho for the half the bill. Was it embarrassing for you though when they played that tape?
Oh,
It was kind of Roman orgy going on.
Horrible. It was over the top. I was taken aback by it, but I smiled and worked my way through it. Wanted the night to end as fast as I could.
Donald Trump called your behavior tacky.
Tacky. Tacky from Donald Trump?
From Donald Trump.
Oh, well, he would know.
Those excesses may have been tacky, but tacky doesn't send you to jail. Far more serious was the allegation.
We can end right there. Anyway, that's that was before Trump was president. So anyway, so that's it, guys. This tape actually might be a little shorter than usual. I don't think you need to see everything about that 60 minutes report. You can always look it up. But just to show you that, like, art imitating life, life imitating art. There we go. These things happen, and we write about the unique, we write about the unusual, and that's what we look for. That's what we go for every time. We go for what's new, and that's what made that new and unique. Okay. So let's try to do that with these data journalism rewrites. Okay. Try to highlight what's new, unique about the trend, and also like the particular years that are important. And of course, with the weather story, now you got a little more time. You know, you're going to basically write about like what's the new and unique experience. Well, the new and unique experience is what's the students are dealing with right now in terms of the weather. Okay, not the biggest news in the world, but unique enough and colorful enough to write about and engage people and make them feel relatable. And like I said, it also is coming at a time when we're actually hopefully nearing the end of this pandemic, or it's transforming into an endemic. So people may be like enjoying things a little bit more outside, stuff like that. So, all right, guys, thanks very much, and I'll be talking to you. Let me know if you need anything. Thanks.